happened. You know, the day after the income trust thing came down, the stock market fell like a stone. Within 72 hours, $35 billion had been erased from the stock market. But you know what? It's gotten worse as time goes on. IPOs. You're getting this, right? Okay, good. IPOs. Initial public offerings. That's when you go to the stock market and you got a company and you want to sell shares to the public and get more money and expand. That's a good thing. IPOs are down 80% since this decision was announced. 80%. That hurts all of us. And here's another interesting thing. You ever heard of this company? Okay, Bell Canada, BCE. Do you remember when Mr. Flaherty said he had the tax income trust? You remember why he said he had to do it? Because companies like BCE and TELUS and Encana, remember? He said they're all going to convert to income trusts and we're going to lose all kinds of tax money. But what has happened to BCE in the years since that decision was made? Well, Bell Canada, BCE, because they couldn't convert to an income trust anymore, they are now going to be bought and taken private, and they are going to be purchased by pension funds. And the pension funds will issue about $12 billion in junk bonds in order to finance this. You know what would have happened if BCE had been converted into an income trust and it flowed its profits through to income trust unit holders? Those unit holders would have paid about $793 million a year for tax to the government. You know how much money BCE is going to pay when it's owned by pension funds? Nothing. This decision is one of those unintended consequences of Minister Flaherty's bad decisions. And it's costing all of us $800 million. What would we do differently? What would the Liberals do differently? Well, we've already said what we would do. We would take that 31% tax, 31.5% tax on income trusts, we would drop it to 10%. We would take the 10% tax and make it refundable to Canadian taxpayers, so only foreigners would pay it. We believe by doing this, that the value of income trust would come back up by about 2/3. You wouldn't get all your money back, but about 2/3. That is what we would do. And you know, Prime Minister Stéphane Dion, if and when he becomes Prime Minister, if we're able to do this in our next budget, spring of 2008, it will be the law of the land then. But I've got to tell you, we all have one shot at this. Only one shot. And that is the next election. All right? If we don't form government and make this change in the next election, the industry, in my view, is lost. Okay? It's devolving sort of every day now. Canadian companies are being bought pennies on the dollar by foreign companies. A lot of investment capital that could have been used in the oil and gas sector is not going in there. It's devolving. This is our shot. We've got to do it. Now, the Prime Minister, the leader of our country, also faces some other challenges. And let me just say this, by the way. I have great respect for the office of Prime Minister. I have great respect for anyone who achieves the office of Prime Minister, regardless of who they are. This is an achievement, and we should never confuse criticism of the office or policies with any kind of criticism of the man. I'm not going to go there, but I'll tell you, Mr. Harper does have some issues he's got to deal with in the world right now, and I'm not sure he's up to it. For example, we see these markets that are in turmoil around the world. Stock markets almost melted down about 3 weeks ago. Did you notice that? It's all based about the American real estate market. Have you looked at that? The Americans are going through a real serious situation with their real estate market right now. And the issue is based around this bull real estate market they have in the U.S., just like the one we got in Calgary. And the market kept going up and up. House prices keeps going up. And we're doing it here too. You can get a mortgage with 0% down. So people get mortgages and the market went up. And all of a sudden, the market started to go down. And when the market went down, people with little equity in their houses started to walk. And all of a sudden, we had a problem. We had a crisis with American central banks and American lending institutions who had put all this money into subprime mortgages. Suddenly, central banks around the world, including the Bank of Canada, had to move in and try and stem this decline. They have literally spent billions and billions of dollars trying to prevent a meltdown in the world's financial market that had shocks right around the globe. And you know what? I don't think it's over yet. And there are implications for Canada. Banks like CIBC, BMO, National Bank have all been impacted. And of course, we are nowhere near the bottom of this thing yet. We are going to continue to see a lot of problems taking place. And in fact, some major companies like this one of the major U.S. Mortgage lenders had to borrow $11.5 billion in one day just to survive a recent week. And the parts of the American real estate market that are going up the fastest are now going down the fastest. Florida, Washington, Boston, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, these markets that have the kind of growth that Calgary and Edmonton and Vancouver have had are now going down. Year over year, 20% declines in prices. It's quite brutal, and it's happening for a number of reasons. And you know what, as I say, it's not over yet. Foreclosures continue. We are seeing this now with housing starts are going down. It's now hitting retailers, Home Depot, Sears, Kmart. Companies like these are starting to be impacted, and it's now washing into the general economy of the United States. And I think, as I say, we are going to see this to continue for quite some period of time. In fact, it's now being forecast that the real estate slump is not even going to hit bottom until sometime in 2008. Of course, American interest rates have gone up over a long period of time, but now they're on hold. They should have gone up again this week, but they didn't because of the problem. And next week, I think American interest rates are going to decline. Now, some Canadians ask me, in fact, they ask me all the time, is this going to stop at the border? Are we immune? Is all this just an American problem? Not going to touch us at all? Well, you'd think that was the case the way Canadians have been acting. In fact, when you take a look at the real estate market, it continues to go up. We've seen sales and prices continue to skyrocket. People here are doing what Americans were doing 2 and 3 and 4 years ago. In fact, right here, this is interesting. This is in Toronto, and I actually saw people camping out, sleeping on the sidewalk for 2 days and 2 nights so they could buy condominiums that won't be built for 3 years. The economists say, you know what, this is not a good sign at all. This is starting to impact the job market in the United States. It's starting to hit consumer spending. It's hitting corporate spending. And in fact, most economists are now saying this is probably going to end up causing a recession. And I think they're right. I think it's that serious. In fact, when you see what happened a couple of weeks ago when the President of the United States stands up and gives a press conference and he says, actually he pleads with 1.4 million Americans, don't leave your houses, don't give up your keys, don't do it. We'll convert your mortgages into federal ones, don't do it. When you see that, you know this is a serious issue. It's already starting to wash over into my neck of the woods. We had General Motors lay off 1,200 workers who make pickup trucks. The pickup truck sales in the United States have collapsed. These workers in Ontario are now jobless, high-tech, high-paid industrial jobs. So this looks like it's going to lead to a consumer recession. And you know what? There's almost always an impact on us when this kind of thing happens in the United States. We still sell 70% of our product into the United States. We are still actually very dependent on what happens there. And you know, I have some concerns about the whole American economy, and this a little bit typifies it. Do you remember this story a couple of months ago? Right? What was it? Minneapolis. Okay, people are driving home from work, commuting, driving home, and all of a sudden, they're in the river. How does that happen? How does a bridge fall down in the middle of a major city, in the middle of the wealthiest country in the world?
Or an overpass in Quebec.
Yeah.
How does that fall down?
But how does that happen? Well, it may be because the United States is spending $200 billion a year on the war in Iraq. I don't know. Maybe it's all about priorities. Maybe it's about the priorities the governments set. You conservative guys having fun back there? You get good tape?
You betcha, Garth.
Right.
It's a hell of a show.
Make sure you show it to all everybody.
You bet.
Now, in the meantime, we are actually getting closer and closer with the Americans through the SPP. not saying that's a